Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, folks. It's the one and only V, the Gorilla, coming to you live on this edition of Rogue News. We have with us the man of the hour who needs no introduction whatsoever. And if you've been living under a rock, well, let me introduce you to my friend, Matthew Arrett. He is the brain trust here at Rogue ESW, and he is the pontiff when it comes to all things historical, all things evidential, and all things in terms of giving the framework of where we were, where we are, and where we will go. You can find his work over at the risingtidefoundation.net, risingtidefoundation.net, canadianpatriot.org. The links will be in the description box. And also check out Matthew's Substack. Buy his books. Phenomenal. The Symphony of the Two Americas, Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume 4. I'm not only a avid reader of Matthew's work, I am a major promoter of it because it's fantastically well done. So make sure you go check that out. And with that being said, Matthew, welcome back, my man. Welcome back. Lots going on. All sorts of crazy concepts out there that people are flying around, and they're really just a bunch of repackaged gobbledygook that has been tried and trial ballooned in the past, and now they're rearing their ugly heads again. There's so many other things that's going on globally as well. We have the situation here in the United States with troops on the streets. We have the multipolar world. We have the U.S. dollar imploding. We have so many things, man. I mean, where do you want to begin, my friend?
It's not easy. There's so many odd things happening at the same time all over the place, but there is a common thread, a common organizing principle. So let's go with that, I guess, which the organizing principle is the blowout of the banking system, right? Which is that's been baked into it's not like it's something that is a surprise necessarily for those who at least created the wiring of what became known as globalization. Here I'm speaking of the Trilateral Commission network around Henry Kissinger, Zbigniew Brzezinski, David Rockefeller back in the 19 well, it was officially created in 1973, but it was being already brought online before that. And you could see the manifesto clearly for the Trilateral Commission, commissioned by um, David Rockefeller, when he told Zbigniew to come up with a manifesto, which was Zbignew's Between Two Ages, America and the Technotronic Age. And in it, he basically lays out the kind of dystopic transhumanist control grid that we could see some of the contour of that being brought online. And I noticed that you guys had Courtney Turner on last week, which is
Yes,
great.
she's phenomenal.
Yeah, she's done her homework. She's got a good mapping, and she's laid out. Like, even though we all hope, and we all hope that the Patriot side of MAGA will come out victorious, and that America can restore its anti-imperial, common sense roots as a free-loving nation. We all hope that, but at the same time, it would be foolish to ignore what Courtney lays out, and so many other good researchers have also made a point of the ascendancy of this transhumanist movement, which has gone from Silicon Valley fringe to becoming now policymakers, top-down policymakers of the game board. And we've seen it with not just the creation of, or the rise of Oracle AI, the
Yeah.
Stargate project, this $500 billion Stargate project that is basically a rebrand, not even a rebranding. It seems like the same thing from the original CIA Stanford Research Institute military industrial Stargate project in 1974 to 1994 that was carrying out remote viewing, trauma-based mind control. It was basically a neo MK Ultra operation. After MK Ultra was shut down, it shifted gears and applied itself to its new iteration in the form of Stargate, um, to create Jedi super soldiers that were brought in with that film Men Who Stare at Goats, the John
Oh yeah.
Ronson book, right? It
Right.
was a real story based on what people like Colonel John Alexander, Colonel Shannon, General Stubblebean, Michael Aquino, the arch Satanist, were engaged in back in were operating out of Fort Bragg.
Sounds like a great
And
group of guys.
oh yeah, this is a cozy group. You don't
It's
want to
like
leave
the who's
your
who of the villains gallery.
It really is. And I was gonna say, you don't want to leave your kids to be babysat with these guys, but it
No.
literally, like Guido was actually caught with his wife Lilith.
Of all
It was
names, Lilith.
Presidio. I mean, so you got a Talmudic demonology sort of name there going on, and it's a big name in the Gnostic sects as well, of the satanic pseudo-Christian Gnostic early Christian cults that went underground after Nicaea, and have always been present, you know, trying to work to undo Christianity from within to restore ancient Gnosticism and ultimately paganism. But he was actually caught under the Presidio scandal of the 1980s, where hundreds of kids were being molested by Aquino and his wife. But he was a Green Beret with John Alexander, who both worked together in Operation Phoenix in Vietnam
Yep,
under
Operation
Colonel
Phoenix.
Lansdale. And we know what that was. I mean, that was a massive murder, torture, global execution campaign of 40,000 civilians, not even combatants, were murdered during that. And out of that came this new breed of super soldier, many of whom were Satanists, who then got funding from the CIA, which Colonel Lansdale was also interfacing with directly, and as he was growing special operations units of the United States military, that then did the same thing with Operation Condor. They basically applied the Vietnam model to Latin America with Operation Condor. The Sandinistas, all of that stuff, the Contras, were all being overseen by this network, and the MK Ultra rebranding was also overseen by them to carry out what Aquino and Stubble called the Revolution in Military Affairs. And in fact, the person who first called out for this Revolution in Military Affairs
Hmm.
was an assistant to Zbigniew Brzezinski by the name of Samuel P. Huntington, who himself had worked in 1974, was working for the Trilateral Commission when there was a task force on democracy of the future that Zbigniew oversaw, and he commissioned Huntington to write a series of reports calling for the reorganized a revolution. What he wrote, he made a book out of it called The Revolution in Military Affairs, which needed some scientific backing to basically try to justify that we need a new breed of super soldier that has special mind powers, psychic mind powers, telekinesis, could run through walls by doing transcendental meditations, psychedelics, maybe some tantric sex magic or whatever at Esalen. And then coming out of that would be able to blow up the hearts of their enemy from afar. And this seemed crazy. And again, you read John Ronson's book or watch the movie with George Clooney, and it seems absurd, but this is actually a real thing that happened. And the vanguard of this stuff became the next generation's dominant generals. They were the ones who were induced to rise to power to make the policies that gave rise to things like Desert Storm, where we first started a new policy after we didn't have the enemy of the Soviet Union anymore. We needed a new enemy, and Saddam Hussein, that we built up and propped up, became a nice, convenient target that then justified the first Desert Storm war in Iraq. We killed 500,000 children through starvation and other
Well,
things. And
Madeleine Albright said it was worth it.
it was worth it. It was worth killing those 500,000 children in Iraq. He said it. And then these groups went and did it all over again, but now with Iraq 2.0, that needed a 9/11 inside job to justify this new age of crusading forever wars that were also done in tandem with the new Israeli Greater Israel policy that these same crusading neocons had paired under the clean break doctrine that was designed in 1997 for Benjamin Netanyahu when he first came in as prime minister for the first time. Richard Perle, Wolfowitz, all of the followers of Brzezinski. These guys originally came to power under Brzezinski in the 1970s under
And
Gerald
they were known as the
Ford and
crazies.
Carter. They were known as the crazies. That's when
Yep.
Dick Cheney first was working under Carter and Ford. And it was under Zbignew's patronage. And then these guys then become the vanguard of the Project for New American Century. And they write the Clean Break Doctrine in 1997, a strategy for securing the realm for Bibi, which requires that a new regime change policy of Arab countries unfriendly to the expansionism of Israel be taken over, or that these countries be taken down, with a whole list. And we know what that list was. The former head of NATO went and forgot his name, Wesley Clark, that's him, gave a number of speeches pointing out that he was privy to this list that had Iraq as number one for regime change. Then Afghanistan was on the list, Libya, Syria was on the list, Lebanon was on the list, Iran was the big trophy. And all of this was necessary in order to establish Greater Israel. to ultimately expand Israel into its broader imperium that it believes is the covenant that Moses signed somehow with God back in the day. So the population of America would not have gone along with that in any way. We had just, organized to stop Joe Biden's omnibus crime bill that was done in response to the first 9/11 bombings, or that was a bombing in 1993, right? There was a bombing that people have forgotten, which was an FBI run operation. Ahmed Salad was the informant used by the FBI, an Egyptian military figure who was assigned by the FBI to recruit, to provide the weapons, the bomb making equipment, the vans that would be used by this terrorist cell to blow up the World Trade Center buildings. And he was recording his conversations with his FBI handler. Luckily, he had the wits to do that. He had like 1,000 hours of recordings of his handler. And the whole time he was trying to say, okay, I have enough evidence that this is going to happen. It's time for you guys to now come in and do something about this oncoming terror attack. And the FBI handler kept telling him, no, we'll do it. We'll do it soon, but you just keep doing what you're doing. Don't worry. We have our ways. And the bombing happened. And that gave Joe Biden the excuse to say, okay, we need this omnibus crime bill, this mass surveillance bill, which luckily then the population was still smart enough to recognize what it was. We put a lot of pressure on representatives who said no to this. It did not go through, which included many Republicans and Democrats working together. But they did it again. And this time, after the second 9/11 bombing was much more successful. And a friend of mine, Brad Zerbo, who you might even want to have on this show, he just made an incredible 2-hour documentary called Codex 9/11, which I saw it a couple of weeks ago. And I got to say, it's the best 9/11 video I've ever seen in my life. I thought that there's nothing new I could learn. There's so much that I learned that blew my mind. So I'll give you his contact info. But all that to say, it wasn't Osama. It was an inside job. And point being is Biden then bragged afterwards when the Patriot bill was passed by John Ashcroft. He bragged that the Patriot Act was word for word exactly what his 1994 omnibus crime bill was earlier. And he bragged like that was a great thing. And John Ashcroft substantiated it, saying, yes, thank you for writing our bill for us. So all that to say, this is what we allowed that to happen. It was a mass collective trauma event, this mass murder of Americans that caused us to go stupid and to give our support to insane propaganda we never would have accepted in any other age.
Yeah.
Based on this dehumanization of Muslims who all want to kill us, they hate our freedoms, and we all know the story. We all went along, or not all, but so many people went along with that.
The Muslim radicals that we radicalized, funded, trained, and provided logistical support for, they hate us for our freedoms.
Oh, and again, this is the big Brzezinski, right?
Yeah.
That's Operation Cyclone. Brzezinski comes right back into play. He's the guy overseeing Operation Cyclone from '79, providing $500 million of U.S. money to radicalizing madrasas and arming these new Mujahideen fighters to so-called, to fight for their freedom against the big bad Soviets. The big bad Soviets, who had an alliance with Afghanistan for a long time, were actually promoting like a real progressive policy. If you look at like Kabul in the 1970s under like so-called Soviet influence, it looks like a street in New York, like cosmopolitan, women are allowed to go to university. It was moving in a really positive direction. And all that was overthrown by the policy of us using and weaponizing radical Islamic madrasas under, again, Brzezinski and Bernard Lewis and Samuel P. Huntington's operation to create a monster that would then be justified for us to go out and try to destroy this dragon abroad, as the new Crusaders required a dragon to go and fight. It's this romanticization of the knights, the chivalric orders that was done to then be justified for us to go out and try to destroy this dragon abroad, as the new Crusaders required a dragon to go and fight. It's this romanticization of the knights, the chivalric orders that was done to create these Jedi knights. And in fact, Colonel Shannon, who oversaw with Stubblebean this overthrow of the overhaul, the revolution of military affairs, even created one of the dominant battalions that Aquino the Satanists even interfaced with was the Jedi Warrior Battalion. You had the First
Mhm.
Earth Battalion,
These
but the
people are
Jedi Warrior
freaking retarded, bro.
yeah, they
Like,
are.
I read, you read some. I look, man. I've read some pretty cool excerpts and some pieces of literature from some of the smartest defense and scientific minds that are in Russia and China. That guys
Yeah.
who are involved in intel and whatnot. They don't operate with this stupid sci-fi fantasy novel Tolkien on retarded steroids Star Wars bullshit. That what is with these guys, man? I think when you have to be a technocrat, you got to be some sort of a tyrannical Isaac Asimov in the same vein. I mean, is that like the part of the curriculum in order for you to be a satanic globalist? It's crazy.
It's weird, eh? Like even just seeing the sci-fi obsession, like a lot of the Silicon Valley like overlord class, self-professed overlords around like the Peter Thiel networks and the PayPal
Dude,
mafia
yeah,
networks.
yeah.
They're
Oh,
all
Lord
like
of the
Dungeons
Rings.
and
Yeah,
Dragons, Lord of the Rings
fucking
obsessed. And
nerds,
I
bro.
like Lord of the Rings. Don't get me wrong,
No,
but
no,
I mean they
I
are
love Tolkien and I love
they
Lord of the
they
Rings.
have an
Incredible.
they
That
have
has
an
nothing to do
unhealthy
with it.
relationship. They have a
Yeah, yeah,
totally
yeah.
unhealthy relationship to these board games and these fantasy novels and these, like you said, Robert Heinlein, Isaac Asimov stories, like Elon Musk. He's described how his most influential story that shaped or uh, uh, influ- the thing that's shaped his identity more than anything else, as he's described it, is Robert Heinlein's "The Moon is a Cruel Mistress," which is basically the story of a renegade, entrepreneurial anarchist type of
Yeah,
uh,
it's like
figure on the moon who has a moon colony, and he just goes renegade because he's being
it's a
withheld
metaphysical
from.
Atlas shrugged, but for
It's kind
like
of like metaphysical. Yeah, exactly. It's
it's
a sci-fi atlas.
metaphysical, yeah. Sci-fi Atlas,
Yeah,
metaphysical
exactly.
Atlas shrugged for retards, man.
Yeah, pretty
You
much.
know,
And he
Maddie.
declares war on the Earth Federation, which is putting too
Yeah,
much bureaucratic restrictions on his ability
yeah.
to do whatever he wants to do, and he succeeds. And anyway, yeah, it's totally Ayn Rand. Yeah, that's right.
And the thing is also um you can't throw a rock without hitting this theme in everything. You see it in their writings, you see it in their talking points, you see it in their white papers, you see it here in their speeches. It's you hear it, you see it on their public profiles. You cannot throw a rock without hitting some sort of sci-fi, fantasy, pop culture, saying, axiom, or phrase or name. It's in everything that they do. It's so freaking weird.
Yeah.
Like grow
Th-
up. I mean, it shows you the constipated development of our quote unquote elites.
I know. Like Mithril,
Yeah.
the Palantir, the all-seeing orb that's omniscient
Oh
and
yes, the
all-seeing.
Palantir. Mm.
Yeah, no, I know. And there's
Our
so many of
weapon
these.
system is known as the Bullrog.
I don't even know if you're joking anymore, right? Like, is
Yeah, I
that?
know. Seriously, I was joking, but I wouldn't be surprised if their weapon system that's based
Yeah.
on their Palantir AI is known as the Bullrog. You know, and then
Might
Morgoth. you
it's
know,
it's just too believable, right? And so there's like this infantilism in their egos that is sort of just it's like they're giddy. They got this giddy like high school degenerate nerd quality
yes,
that's
they need to be put
now
back
got
in the locker rooms.
yeah, that's now combined with a deep misanthropy. Maybe they got too many of them got wedgies or something from jocks. I don't even know. But all that to say, when you actually start looking at a lot of their even their profiles, whether it's Jeff Bezos or whether it's Mark Zuckerberg or Thiel or Elon Musk, a lot of the or Bill Gates, a lot of these Silicon Valley overlord types are are themselves the progeny of military industrial families, like high level players within the operating system of the world. Like Elon Musk's grandfather, we've talked about, was the Joshua Haldeman, who was the head of Technocracy Inc. He was the head of the Fabian Society of Saskatchewan in the 30s, where he worked with the Rhodes Scholar networks. He was an occultist, or he was at least working with Major Douglas's occult networks under AJ or Raj and the Theosophists, who oversaw the Social Credit Party. But this Technocracy Inc. thing is exactly what Elon Musk has been influenced by. We've talked about that. But then you look at Bill Gates, his father was part of the David Rockefeller Planned Parenthood operation, was the president of it. His mother was a board of director of the IBM operation that seeded Microsoft later on, because people still associated in the 70s and 80s IBM with the Nazis. rightfully so, and they wouldn't really have trusted that brand to be in their homes with the new home computing systems that they were trying to bring online. So they needed to have like a cardboard cutout, which Bill Gates seemed to serve the role as, to be the salesperson that would welcome them under a new brand like Microsoft to bring the stuff into home computing systems. And then you had like Peter Thiel's father as well was a major mining magnate in South Africa. The same time that Elon was growing up, so too was Peter Thiel around the same time in South Africa with his father operating in this international mining conglomerate. Um, Not too sure about the military connections there, but there might be something to the Nazis. I'm still waiting to find out about that. But you got these things. Curtis Yarvin, who's like the guru of Peter Thiel and the founder of the intellectual dark web as we know it, who advised Elon on creating his third political party. That same Curtis Yarvin, his both sides of his family were tied into the U.S. military intelligence community at a very high level. Johnny Vedmore has written extensively about that. So it's like they seem to be more often than not cardboard cutouts.
Yeah.
And there's something else brewing under the surface behind the popular story of geniuses who were just nerds getting picked on and then becoming, university dropouts, creating great ideas in their garage. That seems to be just cover stories. It's like Isaac Newton getting apples to fall on his head. It's like, oh, the apple fell on his head and thus he discovered like all the laws of the universe and gravity. It's like, no, that's clearly a cover story that's hiding a real story that most people are not allowed to know about, which would get us into the political sanctum of who are controlling the levers of the information war, the mind war that's behind the surface of things. So that seems to be what's going on today. And again, Stargate, the fact that the project Stargate has been the name chosen, knowing what it was originally in the 70s and what it is today. Looking at Oracle as the idea of creating a new brand for like a revival of the ancient system of the oracles, which were for those who don't know, the geopolitical system of the entire ancient world was run by a system of controlled oracles called Sibyls, that were in Egypt, in Athens, in Rome, in Syria, everywhere. You had this interconnected network of prophetesses, basically doped up seers, oracles, who would be often molested women, trained and kept on drugs and there'd be a high priesthood who would interpret the garblings of these oracles that would then give those interpretations to generals and kings who would pay a lot of money to hear what the gods would want them to do as far as going to war or not, or whatever other policy you want to do. It's, do we let in this new cult into our realm or not? Let the gods tell us through the oracle interpreted by the priest. And that was how global influence operations worked back
It's
then.
insane.
And that's what they want to bring back. And now they want to bring it back, though, with the added twist of this new technological
AI.
rebranding. AI is the thing that everybody has, their own oracle in their pocket that could tell them all the secrets of the universe. Everything that they want to hear, they can get the answer to now and stop thinking for themselves. Because who are you to compete with this new sentient technology that's coming online, that's being evolved as we
Yeah.
speak, right? Which
Mhm.
must eventually see us as something to be exterminated because we're clearly a pollution, a pox of violence-making pollution machines. That means we're certainly going to go extinct unless we merge with them, unless we merge with the Neuralinks and we merge with with CRISPR tech to produce our new test tube babies for the future that'll be a little bit more relevant. Maybe our extinction will be staved off for a few more centuries if we can just merge with the technology.
If
That's just
only.
it's yeah,
These people are sick, dude. These people
they're totally
have
sick.
done a lot of drugs. They've been the biggest problem is they've been in their own echo chamber for the last several decades. They think they're the cat's meow. They think they're the elites. They don't realize
Yeah,
much of the world has left them in the dust. And
yeah.
these people are rulers of basically an ash heap at the end of the day, you know?
Well, they are, but at the same time, it's like there's a certain degree of sophistication that goes with the crazy, which causes
Mhm.
me. I'm kind of like as hopeful as I am of humanity, like making it through this. I've been mapping out this occult Gnostic underground and their different manifestations and iterations over the centuries and millennia sufficiently that I could see it very, very powerfully emerging in and around the Trump network.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. I can't. As another group of people, I can't throw a rock at without hitting one of these guys.
I know. So
I'm with you. At the same time, I'm like, okay, well, what's on the other side of this? There's a change, whether people like it or not. There's a coming calamity, economically speaking, to the United States. It's coming.
Well, that's the thing, right? And that's where I think the oligarchy has been so obsessed with getting rid of the sovereign nation state. Like, and that's something that you read the writings of Zbigniew Brzezinski, David Rockefeller, all of these game masters are obsessed with dismantling the sovereign nation state system. That's been a continuity. The associated culture that goes with, Judeo-Christian civilization, as far as the idea of seeing human beings as made in the living image of God and thus sacred. That's something they also want to destroy. The idea of honoring our families, our children, that has to be destroyed. But I mean, the sovereign nation state on a mechanical level is the most obsessive thing that these guys have been trying to undermine and destroy from within, because it's the only thing that, or the most powerful thing that I think humans have created as a technology, a metaphysical technology that, when wielded from the standpoint of morality, has been able to disrupt the influence of that very oligarchy most impactfully, and also introduce positive policies that pull people out of poverty. That's a lot of P's in one sentence. War, chaos. So we've been able to see concrete examples of this from the standpoint of Lincoln's greenback system, how Lincoln was able to utilize protective tariffs, the power of the nation state to emit productive credit for specific projects, like the Transcontinental Railway, amidst the Civil War, that was also being artificially induced by these very same Satanists and Gnostics, like Albert Pike. And I saw somebody in the chat point out Albert Pike's name in his statue, which was just reinstated a few weeks back. But that type of there was an occult initiation effort to try to destroy the U.S. through a chaos operation, to get the U.S. to cannibalize itself through that Civil War, and then insert a new order out of that chaos that would entail a restoration of global feudalism for everybody. And as we saw with Albert Pike's, Empire of the Golden Circle operation that he was a part of with Judah Benjamin and others, that also were the same guy that was co-founding member of the B'nai B'rith, that co-evolved with the Golden Circle operation in 1851, which was itself just a part of the Mazzini Pike young America, young Europe movement. Yeah. So that's the sort of thing that, even though we survived it because we had wiser people who knew how to use the nation state system in a positive way, it didn't go away, and it killed Lincoln. It killed Garfield. It killed McKinley. It grew this fifth column operation. It set up the Pilgrim Society in 1902, right? For those who don't know, Google the Pilgrim Society, and they'll know. It's the Anglo-American special relationship that the Astors, the Vanderbilts, the Morgans, the Rockefellers created in order to establish on this earth, and to bring the USA back under the British fold in 1902. This is what Henry Kissinger, the Trilateral Commission co-founder, was the chairman of this Pilgrim Society for many, many years. This is what Tucker Carlson and his father, both high-level CIA operatives, or at least his father was a high-level CIA operative. Tucker has some plausible deniability, but both were members of the Pilgrim Society, devoted specifically to creating an Anglo-American special relationship and restoring the USA as an appendage of the British Empire under a new name. So, this is what's been creeping. This is what killed Warren Harding and this is what killed McKinley in 1901. This is what killed FDR in 1945, in April 12th. This is what killed JFK. And it's been there. This is what I think tried to shoot Gerald Ford using a Manson family member, but missed. Otherwise, Nelson Rockefeller would have been president when Ford was killed. Now, that didn't really change much because Ford was still a pliable disaster, but still, it was interesting. This is probably what tried to kill Reagan in 81.
Right.
But Reagan came out of it with half of his marbles, though still, not as pliable.
He got real quiet after that one.
He did. It shut him up, and it made him more easy to work with for the Empire.
I will say this: I knew
Yeah.
a guy. He was the doctor who was in the hospital, and his colleague is the doctor that operated on Reagan when he got shot. And it wasn't. And what that guy told my friend is that that was not a regular gun. It was something called a flechette.
What's that?
It's some sort of device. It was the doctor believes it was actually a Secret Service member that jammed it up against Reagan's body and then pulled the trigger. It looks almost like a tube, and it just
Really?
shoots a projectile directly into the person's body.
Wow.
Yeah, the gunman was just a cover.
I was always wondering about that because I mean, the Hinckley Bush connection was weird, right? The
Yeah,
fact that Hinckley was a
John Hinckley
neighbor of
was.
the Bush family.
Yeah, that was just the cover.
Yeah.
Just like with Oswald being the whole thing about there were 3 shooters on the grassy knoll. The real shooter was from wherever the grassy knoll was, and you see the impact going from front and hit him
Back.
in the front and blowing out the back of his head. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, it's always a. Yeah, that's interesting though that what you're saying. I didn't hear about that one before, but it's very, very interesting. I know the same thing was to be said for Martin Luther King's killer as well, whose
Yeah.
name is escaping me for the moment, but who admitted that he basically said that his admission of guilt was done under duress, and it wasn't him. It was another
Correct.
sharpshooter. It was a
Yep.
sharpshooter in a building far removed from the Lorraine Motel, and Coretta Scott King heard out his case,
James
and
Earl Ray. The
James Earl Ray,
Yeah,
that's
that's
it.
his name.
James Earl Ray. This guy was dumb. He didn't know what was handling him. He ended
Yeah.
up in Toronto for a period on the run, but is kind of like Lee Harvey Oswald, like they're managed, they have handlers, and a script has been created that they're not aware of, that they're going to play a role in that script. They're given a job and told to follow orders. Lee Harvey Oswald is a military guy. He's used to following orders and not thinking. And he takes up the job at the book depository. And he'd just come
And
back from
here's the
Russia
funny
where he was
thing.
told to go. Yeah.
Here's the real tell, right?
Yeah.
Is that Ray? What city was he caught in when he fled?
I
London.
don't know which city.
He was caught in
It was
London.
London. He was in London.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Hmm. Yeah, how did he get the passport? Like, yeah, the passport approval and everything else. That's interesting that he was caught in London. Well, yeah. So, what do you think about that?
I think there's something to it, man. I mean, he flees to Canada, winds up in London, and that's where he's caught. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's
Yeah,
it's
it's too much.
it's
Yeah.
it's a little too on the nose for me.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? I mean, if he was caught in like West Bumblehooha, Alabama, that's one thing, or he's on the outskirts of Florida, that's another thing. But of all places, he's in London. Really? Why?
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
Just
Also,
odd, man.
another one, Saran too. I
Oh,
was
another one. Yeah.
at the last batch of declassified FBI reports on the murder of Bobby Kennedy. There was an FBI report on the Rosicrucian order that Saran was a member of, and so Saran was actually not just seeing some shady MK Ultra style psychiatrists, but was also a member of a Rosicrucian order, of which there are many, um,
Mm.
in California. So you got, you keep on walking into the occults every time you start scratching on this nerve center of causation behind all world events. There's a common principle, and it is this occult thing that that infused itself and took over the Roman Empire, that ensured that, or the Roman Republic, that ensured that the Republic would transform itself into an empire. Um,
Mhm.
it's the same thing that killed Jesus under Tiberius. It's the same thing that Nero and Caligula rose to prominence as members, as initiates of the proto chivalric, knighthood of Mithra, the Mithraic
Yes.
cult that was out to destroy Christianity, and that was the dominant cult of many kingdoms at that time. It was only the Sassanids that overthrew the Mithraic cultists in the pre-Muslim world. But this is the same thing. And it just went underground, even though it was banned from Rome at a certain point in like 390 something, but it just went underground. And I think it reemerged in the form of different incarnations, one of which being the Templar order, which also ended up overseeing the system of the pirates. The original Skull and Bones imagery itself comes from, as I'm just recently discovering through the works of this modern living Mithraic scholar who is himself a devoted follower of the cult of Mithra, Jason Giordani. I've been reading his works, and yeah, he's made the concise point that it was originally a mercenary psyop group that was a cult that managed the seas. They were the pirates of the ancient world that were infused into Rome. They they were using the skull and crossbones back then, and it was again the Templars with their control of ports and maritime shipping during the Crusades that
Yeah.
also revived the use of the skull and crossbones once again as a Mithraic imagery, and they had initiatory rites of initiation into something I think ultimately satanic in its inner core. But it's made a revival. Even now, you can go to it. There's they're recruiting. People who have $700 to spend can can submit an application and get tried and tested to see if you've got the metal to become a modern Knight Templar. They got a website, but it's something which has various manifestations, and I think a big chunk of that is behind the growth of the Crusader ideology that Peter Thiel even wrote about in his Straussian Moment essay in 2007. He writes about his devotion to this Straussian, which is what the neocons were. They were Straussians who used noble lies to get the herd to go into crusades. He was sponsored by Irving Kristol and Richard Pearl. They were two of his earliest sponsors, even when he was running the Libertarian Review at Stanford, the same Stanford that was earlier running the Stargate mind control remote viewing projects for the CIA. It's the same Stanford Review that Stanford that Peter Thiel was working at, and that Elon Musk so-called dropped out of. That he was being sponsored by Irving Kristol, leading neocon Project Through a New American Century. That these were the guys who were introducing him into In-Q-Tel, the venture capitalist front
Yes.
group for the CIA,
Mhm.
that then created Palantir when everybody at the time the population was, though they accepted the Patriot Act, they did not accept total information awareness. The total surveillance program with the all-seeing eye of Horus as its model in 2003, which was failed. It failed to be brought online because of too much popular backlash. But then all of its functions were carried over by In-Q-Tel, who was a civilian cardboard cutout who had just made some money on controlled sales of PayPal. Peter Thiel, who then got the job to be the government contractor and do the things as a civilian front group, but with an actual, I think, satanic like a satanic priesthood on the behind the scenes managing the thing. And it's the same In-Q-Tel that was working with Elon Musk in 2003, bringing Elon Musk to Russia to try to buy and acquire Russian rockets for his newly founding SpaceX operation that was going to soon be brought online in 2004.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's all the same thing. If you
Yeah.
wherever you look, you find the same damn thing every single time. Neo Templar Crusaders obsessed with ushering in some purgative cataclysm that they feel has to be done to redeem humankind because we're ultimately bad, and the only way to deal with the pollution of human nature is to create periodic mass destructive cycles, maybe every 1,000 years or so. The Crusades being the last big one, where a big chunk of the world population was annihilated and whole sets of knowledge and wisdom were forgotten for centuries until the Renaissance. But this is what they've got this obsession with these new ages and then resetting human civilization's very nature, and whether it takes the form of a left language or a right conservative language, if the outcome is 15-minute cities, but now under the name of not Yuval Harari or Klaus's, top down freedom cities, or not freedom cities, 15-minute cities, it'll take the form of a freedom city or a Prospera or a Civium or something like that Peter Thiel is investing in Honduras or elsewhere, as these very controlled nodes with blockchain imprints and total surveillance of our behavior that could easily be then modified if you have if you have a moral governing class, fine. But if you don't, and you have a satanic governing class that has access to that technology, then you could definitely corral and herd people for their behavior or bad behavior in these very controlled zones. So the effect ends up becoming very similar, no matter how you look at it. Um, or even just the investments into psychedelics, which a lot of left and right-handed conservatives and liberals who are amongst this elite class of the uniparty, they all tend to love the idea of dealing with the useless eaters that will be useless because of automation and AI by creating new technologies of psychedelic drugs for everybody and more immersive video games to waste your time until you get your suicide pill and get fed as Soylent Green to your neighbor. So it's pretty sick, but people need to be stronger, I think, on this ability to just identify what this is, so that they could see where are the human things, where are the movements that are in harmony with natural law that could bring us into some form of outcome that involves avoiding World War III, avoiding some mass purgative ritual sacrifice in the Middle East, which is coming on fast, which could avoid a civil war, which is coming on fast, by recognizing what is the nation state, where does it come from, what are its powers for good and for bad, how is China, how is Russia been able to utilize these powers of the sovereign nation state in order to drain their swamps and to introduce new principles of cooperation outside of the influence of the oligarchy that we could work with and we could benefit from immensely if we chose to. But instead, if we choose to hold on to our old ignorant illusions, then we might be driven towards ultimately a war with China, which also is being nudged. I could see that, I could see that also being massaged as well. Is that outcome as a possibility? So yeah, people just got to be stronger. But I just realized we got like 5 minutes left. So super sorry, man.
No, it's all good, dude. It's all good. I want to thank you for being on. I mean, if there's anything else that you want to say, any material that you want people to look at real quick to some of the research work that you're doing, feel free to plug it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, my wife just put out a crazy here. I'm just gonna read the title of it. So if people are not invested in my wife's Substack, she's doing a new series. And get this, the title of the first essay, she's already written the second one. There's gonna be a few more. It's called Towards a New Jerusalem, a gathering of Jacobites, Scottish Rosicrucians, Scottish Rite Rosicrucians, Freemasons, Moravians, Sabbatean Jews, and the father of theosophy, Emanuel Swedenborg.
Wow.
That's just a mouthful, but she's going into depth, proving where this dark Kabbalist cult comes from, what its origins are, how it interfaced with the Gnostic, satanic, pseudo-Christian cults. Also, in what'll be probably touched upon at some point as well are the Gnostic Muslim cults as well, like the assassins, who were pretty much the same thing, but under a Muslim veneer. All Mithric, converging moral opposites together in initiation rituals that would purge the initiate of their humanity and create a new sort of Jedi superhuman wannabe with supernatural powers or the ability to interface with demons and angels, which would be the outcome of what they wanted their initiates to go through, who would then be instruments to carry on multi-generationally this very sick sorted tapestry. I noticed Martin Levy just read it, fantastic article. Hell yeah. So it's behind a paywall, but I'd suggest people who can do it, invest in it, check out Cynthia's work. Also, Cynthia and I are going to be going to Toronto in 2 weeks, 10 days, with our friend David Gosselin, and we're going to be doing 2 events. So if people are in or around Toronto, I'll just put that out here. Come get a ticket on Eventbrite we're going to screen our Hidden Hand Behind UFOs, Roswell and the Birth of a New Legend, episode 4. So we're going to screen that at a cinema in the middle of the Toronto International Film Festival. So tickets are available on Eventbrite for that. And then that's a Saturday night. The Sunday, we're going to do a symposium on Dark Ages and Renaissance. The tickets are available to that. That's the next day. That's going to be off in Pickering, a little 30-minute drive east of Toronto. So for those who want to go, I'll send you a link to maybe put in the description box or the comments so people can go and get those things. That's what I'm up to.
Perfect. Good deal. Matthew
All right.
Ehret, the man, the myth, the brain trust. He is here, folks. Again, follow his work. With that being said, we're over and out. Cheers, everyone.
Cheerio.